Welcome to the Insurance Brokers Podcast Helpful Hints. Here we break down the best, most informative bits of our full-length interviews.
In terms of what should it cover, so the plan could be structured around the principle, the cross-cutting rules, the 4 outcomes, etc. However, certainly when we've looked at it, the conclusion that we reached is if you adopted that kind of structure for a plan, there's probably going to be a lot of overlap in terms of actions between each of those areas. So that's not to say that approaching it in that way would be wrong, but just from a personal perspective, the approach that made more sense to me is to really look at structuring a plan around the kind of things that should be covered. So, to give you an example, the kind of headings that we've used in PIB are around the changes that we'll need to make and the considerations around things like governance, risk and compliance. So that might be around, for example, looking at making sure that our board and committee's terms of reference include the consumer duty. It might be looking at our risk framework and saying, right, again, does our risk framework fully account for the risks and also the intended outcomes of the consumer duty? It might be re-looking at some of our compliance policies. Other things could be SMCR. So again, thinking about incorporating the consumer duty in terms of statements of responsibility. Awareness and training, another really key work stream from my perspective. There's a lot of work to do in terms of communications and training, both for specific audiences like the board, or for example, all staff. If we think about going back to that conduct rule that affects all of us, there needs to be some training around that so that all of our colleagues understand what the conduct rule is aiming to achieve, but also how that translates into practice. The sales journey, fair value, charges and fees, again, vulnerable customers, key sales communication and documentation, and also one of the important things coming out of the duty is around almost the question, so how do you know that your key sales communications and documentations are fit for purpose? So there's an element of the duty that talks about testing. So I think that, certainly you get feedback on some of the communications that you have, but there's more of a proactive obligation now to say, how do we actually know? We think what we've done is very clear and it's simple and it's straightforward, but how do we know? How do we know that? So there's more of a proactive obligation, I think.
Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed what you have heard, have any questions or feedback, please leave us a review and we will be sure to get back to you. If you would like further information on how Boston Tullis Group can support your business, or if you would like to join us on an episode, please do not hesitate to contact us.